This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Hey, guys, thanks so much for joining me today. And just so that we can make sure everybody knows who you are, I'll do a quick introduction. I've got four experts here. The first one is Dr. Greg Dowling, who is a physician who attends City Church. And then I've also got Janell Lane, who is a licensed mental health counselor, and she is going to be our expert today from kind of the mental health perspective as well as parenting. I've got Willie Smith, who is a financial advisor, and he's going to just share some wisdom around finances. And then I've got Beth Butler, who is a mom, a homeschool parent, and a former classroom teacher. So thank you all for joining me. And Greg, we are going to start with you. So just, recognizing the world we're in right now, it is COVID-19. You're a doctor on the front line. So why don't you just talk to us a little bit about the virus and about what you're seeing?
You cut out on the last couple words of your question. Sorry.
Sorry, yeah, I pressed the
About
mute.
the virus and what?
What's going on? What are you seeing?
All right. So, I mean, this virus is obviously a novel experience for all of us in the medical community, all of us in the United States, and absolutely worldwide as well. It's changing all of the time in the medical world, and in my perspective from Fort Wayne right now, we're kind of in this time frame where the calm is here before the storm. We're starting to see a lot of the ramp up of this virus hit our community. If you follow any of the State Department of Health websites or any of the CDC websites where you can actually follow how many cases and how many deaths and who all is affected. Those things are obviously ramping up, but they're kind of unreliable data unless you're really looking at a few different things. So the first one that really is our only reliable quantity of how many people are affected is either the hospitalization number or the deaths number, because we're really not testing that many people. If any of us develop symptoms of fever and chills and cough, and your doctor thinks you have COVID, you're not going to get tested for it. I'm probably going to be the only one out of the group of us that would get tested because I work directly with patients in healthcare, and those are the only people that are qualifying unless we end up sick enough to be in the hospital. And so as you follow these numbers, I just encourage people to, hey, don't put too much weight in a number of cases here. Oh, we had a new case in this county. We had a new case in this county. It's everywhere. It's all over Indiana. It's here. It's in our hospitals. Our hospital physicians are the ones that are really starting to feel it. Me as a primary care doc, family medicine, outpatient, I'm not seeing much of it because we've changed our practices. The practices have changed to the point where I'm not really seeing any sick people with upper respiratory symptoms. I'll see you if you're sick and you have abdominal pain, or if you hurt your back, or if you had something else go on. But all of those patients are getting shunted to our COVID clinics, our respiratory clinics. Parkview has set up a respiratory clinic at multiple different locations. We have multiple different COVID clinics. It's the same basic concept, is to put those sick people together, protect the staff with appropriate PPE, personal protective equipment, which is the stuff that we wear to protect ourselves from getting infections from our patients, and to protect our patients from getting things from us. And to help conserve some of those things, we're changing the way we practice. So.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. I think one thing I do want to make sure we mention here, just to your point, is the date and time of this recording. So today is April 1st. It's a little after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So, this information is changing so rapidly. I think it's important, because somebody watches this 2 weeks from now or whenever, it's going to be totally different information. Can you talk to me a little bit and to us a little bit about, we've been seeing a lot of stuff in the news about the protective equipment and the lack of protective equipment, as well as just the lack of equipment or, respirators, seeing lots of articles about that sort of stuff. And just, there's a lot of fear around that. And then also, there's been this back and forth conversation. Should everybody be wearing masks, or should only doctors be wearing masks? And so I know, once again, you're one physician, you don't speak for, all of human healthcare right now, but just would love to hear what you're hearing and seeing, and, maybe you can help us decipher a little bit of that.
Yeah, thanks for that disclaimer that I'm just one, because there are definitely differences of opinions on some of these things. So just for a little educational purposes, you use the term respirators, and respirators are what we consider masks, and those you can use interchangeably as the N95 masks are considered respirators. And then you see some people buying and purchasing these big, more gas mask-like respirators. Those are also respirators. The simple over the ear loop mask that you see a lot of people wearing, those aren't considered respirators. Those are just surgical masks. That's part of our personal protective equipment that we're short on. And it's multifactorial. So a lot of it is use is going way up and production is starting to ramp up, but production historically in large quantities has come from China, and China has had a huge surge already, and they've used it up and they're shipping them to other places, and we're having difficulty finding them. Our big medical systems in Fort Wayne both have stockpiled quantities of N95 masks, and we are at the point right now where we're trying to conserve as much as we can to be prepared for when the tsunami hits. And the problem with that is if we're really going to help in the medical world to stop the spread of these things, we need to be protecting things now too. But the quantity isn't there. Even just simple surgical masks, we are drastically low, and we can't find them from reliable sources to ship in. We can't find them at other places, and so it's a battle, and it's only going to get worse. So we're seeing lots of community involvement with things of trying to help out, and those things are nice. But cloth masks don't protect you from anything. They make people feel a little bit better, but if I'm a patient and my nurse comes in with a cloth mask, they're not really protecting much more than just using good hand hygiene and appropriate factors. So it's good to be protected. Should we all be wearing masks? If they were readily available, absolutely. And that's the caveat, is we don't have them. So we are recycling masks, we're re-sterilizing them. I mean, these are 50-cent masks that you normally just throw away, and we're trying to extend the use as long as we can to help conserve supplies. Ideally, sure, if we're going to do absolutely everything we can, where everybody wearing a mask would not be a bad idea for two reasons, right? It helps stop you when you're coughing or sneezing from spreading that. Those little masks that people wear don't help the aerosolization when the virus is in tiny little particles, like if you ever have had a kid on a nebulizer and the nebulizer puts this vapor up in the air, that's an aerosolized solution. That happens in some capacity with coughing and sneezing, in addition to the respiratory droplets. And the droplets are the things that come out of the mouth and the nose, and they drop quickly and they hit the ground within a few seconds. That's what these masks that people are wearing protect against. The N95s protect against the aerosolized. So should everybody be wearing them? Sure. If we had them, we don't have them. Do I wear one? I got off work this afternoon. I stopped by the grocery store. Did I wear one in the grocery store? Absolutely, I wore one in the grocery store because I have it, and I'm going to protect myself and my people as much as I can. So I don't know. It's a hard question. We don't have the supplies we need, and hopefully they're going to be coming. I mean, there's surges coming in, but you got to find them.
I have a couple questions for you, Greg.
Yeah.
If that's so the first one is, like, you see oftentimes when you're watching the CDC or just different information that's coming out, these peaks. Like, where are we in terms of the peak here is the first question. Okay. And then the second question is, with so few being tested, and with the only people really being tested being those who are sick enough to be hospitalized. Is there some history with this that shows that early intervention is key in saving lives with this? Like the fact that not enough people are being tested on the front end of things, is that negatively impacting outcomes?
Okay, so I'll take the second part of that question, and then I'll come back to the curve. So the second part of is intervening earlier in people that are less ill with this virus more beneficial? No, because there's nothing to do. There's not medicine that we do or that we have that really drops this down. And if you pay attention to the news, there's a couple different medicines that are out there that people are using, and there's certain groups of physicians that are trying to use this in this group of people. And hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine and azithromycin, fine. They do come with some risks, but those are now becoming on back order and we can't find them. So it's not like we have options. If I develop a cough today and I get quarantined, I'm just going to control my symptoms, and that does not determine who's going to be the unfortunate person that their body reacts quickly to this and just develops an aggressive response. So it's part the virus, it's part how does your body respond to the virus and react to it, and the fever and the cough and the swelling of the throat, that's your body trying to fight it off, but suffering consequences from it. So yeah, I don't think the lack of testing is necessarily affecting how many people end up in the hospital, besides for the fact that the lack of testing is not giving a realistic perspective of who all has the virus and who all really needs to be quarantined and who all is really taking it serious. This is one of those things where, at least in my practice and in our community, I've seen that like so many things in the American culture, you don't take it seriously until it hits you in the face. People can talk about it all day long on the news and you see it, and yeah, I'm not supposed to be out, and this country's doing this, and this country's doing this, but until it's your mom or your aunt or your cousin or your neighbor's sister that's in the hospital with it, it doesn't become real for people. And that's part of it that I think makes it difficult. So if by testing more people, we quarantine more people and we stop the spread of it, sure, that would help. But in terms of intervention, I don't see that. And then taking the next question onto the curve, you got to see. It depends on which curve you're looking at. Are you looking at the number of new cases diagnosed curve versus are you looking at the death curve? So the number of new cases diagnosed, if you're looking at country to country to country, all on the same graph and seeing which one responds differently, the problem with that is putting all of those on the same graph is assuming that everyone is testing the same type of people and the same quantity of people. If you're not testing with the same parameters, that curve really doesn't mean all that much. So if you look at the death curve, we know that's a hard number. That's a denominator in the equation of the number of people that have it divided by the number of people that die is your death rate, right? The denominator is a solid number. We know everybody that dies from it because we test them. We're not that numerator of the number of people that are diagnosed, just kind of made up number, because every country is testing in a different capacity. So when I'm looking at the curves, I'm looking at the number of deaths. When you look at the curves and you look at the number of new cases, that is going to peak about, the studies that I read, 7 to 12 days before the number of deaths peak, because people don't die from this as soon as they get it. They die from it, they're on a ventilator for 7 to 21 days, and sometime in between there is when they die. And I apologize for talking about death so openly. That's just kind of what we do in my field. I mean, it's part of what we do, and so hopefully people don't take offense to that. But it's real, and I think people need to understand.
I'll try to come back around with some pastoral response here near the end, Greg.
Okay.
So
good.
Redeem a little bit. No, that's good. It's important to be able to be honest. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So Greg, just I want to make sure we've got time for everybody else here, but I think, if anybody's probably going to get the most time, it's probably you, and that's okay. Just one last kind of question or combo question here is, how can we help? I know, a lot of the answers everybody's heard, but maybe they just need to hear it again. How can we help? And then also, like, how can we help the medical community specifically, and help, you and others who are working in hospitals and clinics? What can we do? And then anything else you want to share.
Okay, so how can you help? Stay home, wash your hands, and if you're sick, absolutely stay home. These aren't just willy-nilly recommendations. They're based off of epidemiological studies that show, hey, staying home matters, and quarantine matters, and stopping the spread of this virus before you have symptoms is important. So stay home, wash your hands. One of the other benefits of people wearing masks is, what do you not do when you wear a mask? You don't touch your nose, you don't stick your hands in your mouth, you don't rub your face, because you got a mask on. And those are the times that you end up with the virus on your hands, and then you touch your doorknob, and then you touch the grocery cart. So keep your hands off your face. Use hand sanitizer if you can find it, and use it in excess if you have it. I would also say, how can you help the medical community? I think the first point I would say is be patient, because our medical system has changed drastically with this. Every single physician's practice has changed. My office has changed, where I've canceled almost all of my routine visits. And if you're coming in for just your Medicare wellness visit, or your yearly physical, or your well child check, I've canceled them. If you're a woman and you're coming in for your women's health and pap smear, we've canceled them. If you have medical issues that need followed up on, we're still seeing patients. If you're sick, we're seeing patients, but be patient. And that's just my office. I've got family friends that have been waiting on their knee replacement. They were going to do it in April because that was the perfect time, and now their knee replacement is not an emergency anymore, and it's canceled. And so be patient. This is not ideal for us. It's hurting all of us from a change standpoint. It's hurting the practices financially. It's hurting the hospitals financially right now, but we're doing all of those things to conserve resources, build up, to prepare for when things get bad. So be patient. Be patient with your doctor's offices, because since you're not able to get into the office, what does everybody do? Is they call on the phone. And so the phones are crazy, and we don't have any more staff. It's not like there's more staff to answer all of the influx of phone calls. So that's one way that you can communicate. But follow up. You've got to advocate for yourself. If you call and you don't get a call back, don't just say, well, I didn't want to talk to me. Follow up. Be an advocate for yourself, but be patient. The best way that you can support is just love on the health professionals that are in your family. Help them out. If you're close to your doctor's office, or if you have the ability to help the staff out somehow and build morale, that's a great thing. I mean, my mother has brought lunch to the office. She doesn't normally do that, but hey, people are home, they're stir crazy, they need something to do. We can figure out ways to do that from a social distancing standpoint, and we can do it. So I don't know. Don't everybody in the church call their doctor and try to take them lunch next week. That's gonna be more phone calls that they don't want to handle. But be creative, find a way to be the church to our medical community.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Greg. I really appreciate that, and just appreciate your wisdom there. Okay, Janell, we're going to jump over to you now, and just want to hear from your perspective as a licensed mental health counselor and somebody who is constantly doing community development work. What are some things you're seeing, and how is this COVID-19 impacting people mentally?
So I'm seeing things across the board. It's a very new situation for all of us. speaking to like older adults who have lived through some things, they still have never lived through this type of thing. Even when like other epidemics have taken place, like the flu and things like that, it wasn't as easily and quickly spread. It wasn't as deadly, and so there weren't mass shelter in place orders and things like that. So just seeing a lot of people trying to adjust, and people are adjusting in different ways. I think one thing that's been kind of challenging has been just watching different coping techniques that are manifesting. You see a lot of judgment, a lot of criticism, a lot of negativity about people who are taking a different position or stance than you are. There's lots of judgment and criticism against people who are having a hard time staying home, which of course you can understand as far as the greater good of the whole. But I think that it's really easy if you're, I'm not saying the situation's easy at all for anybody, but it's easy to be a bit more critical if you have a family of four, or five or six, and you're at home and you have your spouse and your kids, and you're just using this opportunity as a time to try to find the blessings in that togetherness. And versus if you're someone who newly lost a spouse, or is literally, single or at home by yourself, or is new to grief and has been using keeping yourself busy as a way and means to cope with grief. This isolation for some people can really be traumatic, and so I'm seeing people having increased symptoms of trauma and PTSD, and confused about why that is. Why are they having those symptoms when nothing traumatic by way of definition happened to them yet? But everything literally that we've known has been flipped upside down. And so I read an article the other day that said, that awkward feeling that you're feeling right now, that's grief. That's what the article was talking about. And so we've got this, just so many people grieving and trying to adjust, and also trying to stay positive in a lot of ways. And sometimes that manifests in different ways. I think one thing that's been a bit disheartening for me is, from a Christian perspective, I've seen a lot of judgment and criticism be placed on those who are taking it very seriously and are feeling afraid or feeling anxious or feeling nervous. I think that not just with this, but with a lot of things, it's easy to look at feelings of fear or anxiety as lack of faith. And so I think that I'm seeing that create a lot of internal conflict for people who are feeling fearful or anxious, because this is potentially deadly and scary. I'm hearing people express fear of dying alone if they get it, or just this feeling just lingering over you. What if one of my family members get it and we're in isolation? I won't be able to go to the hospital to see them. My parents are older, having maybe not the best health or being more vulnerable and at risk. And what happens if they contract it and, end up having to die alone? There's families having not able to have funerals and trying to do unique things for memorials, and there's birthdays and different celebrations, and so the emotions are literally everywhere right now. And I think one thing that maybe concerns me a bit is that a lot of us haven't given ourselves room and space to feel what we're feeling. We are trying to make ourselves okay with it instead of creating room and space for the fact that it is a huge transition and a change. And if you navigate those things without any emotions or feelings, then I'm concerned.
No, that's really good. Yeah, I think that's really profound, actually. And especially in the Christian community, like you said, there are lots of different types of responses, but one of the more, unhealthy theological perspectives that people can have is that if you really trust God, that this won't affect you at all. I think whoever holds that position clearly hasn't read like most of the Psalms, because most of those Psalms are, David crying out saying, God, where are you? When are you going to come rescue me? Mm-hmm. This sucks, right? So there's space for that, which is really good. Let me ask you this, kind of a two-part question here. What are some of the warning signs that we need to watch for in ourselves or in those around us, those in our community? And then kind of the second part of that is, what can we do to proactively take care of our mental health if we start to see some of those warning signs, or even beforehand, to make sure that we're just providing the right kind of care mentally for ourselves and others?
So, as far as warning signs, it would be typical symptoms of any of the more common, like anxiety, depression, things like that, where it would be like a decrease in desire to do things that you used to enjoy, which honestly is kind of hard to do things that you used to enjoy, but the lack of desire to do them, even within your house. So, if you used to enjoy certain things and now you don't, whether it's, being active or, jogging, running, spending time with family, kids, even challenges or changes with your sleeping. If you're having a hard time getting to sleep, staying asleep, or feeling rested when you wake up, if you're noticing, a decrease in appetite, or increases in appetite with noticeable weight gain, which, I mean, a lot of us are snacking since we're bored, but just being mindful, like if you're stress eating, if you're just eating because you're bored or because you don't have other things to do, you might want to assess, am I feeling stressed? Just any change, or if you're having a hard time functioning, decreases in energy, or just feeling sadness, crying more easily. I would say that honestly, you should give yourself grace and give yourself some space to experience some of those things, because it's a natural part of this process. We're all experiencing some of those different things at different points. But if it gets excessive, I know there are lots of therapists who are doing virtual visits. I actually wasn't taking clients prior to this because I've been trying to focus on getting things in place for the business, but I am now taking the step that I need to take to be able to see clients virtually. So I'm getting all my, numbers that you need, identifier numbers, and also applying to different insurance panels and things like that, because I think from a mental health perspective, we're going to be dealing with the impact of this for a long time. And just as we don't know exactly how long we're going to need to stay in our houses, we also don't know what the emotional impact is going to be, especially when we look at what the economic impact is on so many families. There's a lot of families in fear about, feeding their kids. I'm incredibly surprised how quickly a family of four, with my kids are 5 and 2. I can't believe how quickly we're running through groceries right now. Like, I'm click listing orders every week, multiple times a week. I'm like, I can't keep up. And I've got a family of 4, and I've got the means and the access to do that. So I'm always mindful when I'm doing it of families who don't have that option. Serving the community that's oftentimes underserved in Fort Wayne. I'm worried and I'm mindful. I would say, there's a lot of people who are in helping fields and helping professions that are experiencing this a little bit different. Typically, they're helpers that rise up, in situations like this. I think the thing that worries me is how this is impacting the helpers, the doctors, the frontline people, even the mental health professionals. A lot of my therapist friends are having a hard time right now because they're seeing more people virtually, but they also have caseloads of clients where they may be the only touch base that these clients have all week. And now they're not able to have that touch base, and they're trying to do as much as they can with keeping up with clients electronically. But at the same time, you can only do so much, and you're getting an influx of new people who are having concerns and issues. And if I'm honest, I think if you're experiencing this and not feeling something, then I'm a little worried. I think we need to all be taking time to assess, what am I feeling right now? What am I thinking right now? What am I needing right now? Just checking in. What am I feeling? What am I thinking? What am I needing? Multiple points throughout the day. And then trying to, as much as you can, meet your own needs. If you take some of the pressure off too, don't worry about not doing this right. Like, there's no right way to isolate yourself in your house. I think we've probably been in our house now for 20 something, 30 something days. I can't even remember exactly how long, because I started sheltering in place before we had the shelter in place. But like, we're so far in and we're adjusted to this, but there's still emotions across the board daily. Things change, and there are times where I feel like I'm about to kill Aaron for no reason other than the fact that we're like literally stuck in the house. So I mean, I just think like not worrying about doing it right. When you need space, try to, take space if that's an option, if you can, and just take some time to ask yourself, what am I needing, while you're trying to be present for other people. I'd also say um, I'm a little worried about those who are really vulnerable and isolated emotionally. So if you know people who are single, they may be fine. People are perfectly happy single, but being single and isolated is different than being single and having deep connection and relationship to people. So I would say like check on your single friends, check on the helpers in your life, the people who are typically taking care of other people, because they're presented with some interesting challenges with all of this.
No, that's really good. And just two quick follow-up statements there. One is you mentioned, just families and food. And so just want to give a quick shout out again that all Fort Wayne community schools, and I believe a lot of other school systems in the area, are still feeding kids. So, even this week during spring break, if anybody who's watching this, if they need food for their kids, they do have to go to the schools. And right now, I believe the kids still have to be present. But you can get meals for your kids. So you've got to, there's some challenges to navigate there. If you're trying to figure out how do I get my kids out of the house, keep them safe, maybe I don't have adequate childcare, whatever else. If you're working and trying to feed your kids, that's tricky, but that's at least one option on the table. They're still doing that at the lunch hour. So people can get meals there. And I can't remember what the second one was, so it must not be that important. Oh, I remember what it was. It was about people feeling isolated. So just a quick shameless plug for City Church here. We are creating right now online community groups for people who are not already in a small group. And so anybody who's watching this and you're not in a small group, you don't have that connection point, these are just very simple, 5 to 7 people, just an online community group. They'll be doing something like this maybe once a week, or even just a text message chain. Nothing too deep, but just some relationship building stuff there. So anybody who's watching, forthecity.com, and click the connection link, and you'll see an option to say, I would like to join a community group. And that's at least one way to help navigate through some of this. Janell, I'm going to come back to you again here. Let me ask you specifically when it comes to our kids and just how we're navigating, this virus and protecting our kids mentally and just making sure that they're, still being loved, cared for, and supported. What advice would you give from your perspective?
So I would say being honest about the fact that we're in a transition, and acknowledging that things are different, because they notice and things are different and their worlds have been turned upside down as well. So giving language to that is affirming and helpful. So I would definitely say acknowledging it, but with, with age appropriate information. I started to notice the more that I watched on TV, just to try to stay in the loop of different things, like even just the press conferences that, the president was doing daily, just so that I could stay in the know of information. Just having that going in the background, I didn't realize how much of it my son was absorbing. But looking for changes in your kids, watching for changes, because they don't always have the language to express what's happening internally. Like if you really think about how we're all feeling internally, we are having a hard time expressing and figuring out what exactly it is that we're feeling. So with their limited language, it's really hard for them to even know, let alone put into words and communicate how they're feeling or what they're needing. So if you're seeing any behavioral changes, any changes in sleep, any changes in appetite, they may be also struggling. And maybe having someone do virtual visits with them if they're of age could be helpful as well. But there's also some tools that you as a parent can do. Just extra like affection and cuddles, being more loving, being more supportive, patient, getting down on their level, so that if they do have things that's happening internally, they tend to communicate best while playing or while, doing other things like activities. So and it's kind of weird, but like men communicate sitting side by side. So like if if I have a client that's a male client and he's having a hard time opening up, I can do an activity with him where we're side by side. Like if we were fishing or watching a game or whatever, that's men's natural way of communicating. And kids are kind of the same way of where they need you to communicate on their level. So getting down physically on their level, just into their spaces. If you have a playroom or their bedrooms, going into their space creates this safety and this openness for any dialogue or communication that would come. And take some of the pressure off the learning stuff. I mean, you know, it's great to continue with learning and education, but there's so many changes right now. Like I was putting so much pressure on myself about work and being able to keep up with work when I have my kids running around behind me all the time. Like, you don't know how hard it was to find a moment to run to come to do this. Like Erin is downstairs trying to keep them contained, but they're clinging to me right now. But you know, just giving yourself grace and giving them grace, and you know, recognizing, yes, it's important for them to learn. It's not as important for you to keep up with the same academic schedule and rigor that they will be receiving if you were their teacher. So I would just say giving everybody grace, room, extra cuddles, time and space to make room for what they're feeling.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, Janell, I know you will probably have to hop off of this call before it's totally finished, so I'll give you permission to kind of check out when you need to, because I know you've got to go so Erin can pick things back up. But before we move on, just anything else that you would want to share or say, any last thoughts here? Not that you have to have any.
I guess I would just say, really, we always talk about self-care and taking care of yourself. I think it's so important. I think it's never been more important to communicate honestly. If you're needing something, find somebody that is safe to talk to. Use video calls and chats, even when you think that's not important. Even if you think you don't need it, just do it anyways. It's just like any other relationship. Sometimes, you know, you think that things aren't important, but over time, if they're not there, then they start to lead to declines, you know. So with your relationships, do more, like your parents, especially, you know, this is a time where a lot of people's parents are aging, or, you know, if you are that aging parent, check in with your kids via video call, video chat. I know my parents are having a hard time being away from their grandkids. Like that's what's really hard for my mom, is being away from grandkids. So finding unique ways to stay connected. And I'd say, you know, of course, always look for the blessing in it, which, you know, spiritually we know that doesn't mean that there aren't challenges though. So making room for them.
That's great. Thanks, Janell. Really appreciate that insight. And since we were just kind of on the subject, I think I'm going to go ahead and transition to Beth, because Janell, you kind of gave a great entry into that, just talking about the dynamic of being a parent and navigating your kids and education. And so, Beth, you have been homeschooling your kids for quite a while now, but you also, you know, were a classroom teacher before, and so you've done both of those things, and would love to just get your perspective. You know, just what kind of wisdom, what advice would you give to parents who now have their kids at home?
Yeah, Janell made a lot of great points and stole a lot of my points, but that's okay. No, like, and most of us are probably doing this anyway, but I find that when I start my morning in the Word and with God, like magically my kids aren't going to behave better, but at least I can start with the right mindset and going into my day, right? Like inviting God to be part of our day, to be part of our school day. Like, I don't know why that's not something I ever really thought of until like the last couple of years, like having him come alongside me, right, as I'm teaching my kids, and like just self-grace, your kids grace, spouse grace, showing yourself, showing your kids grace, your spouse grace. It's a difficult time. Even doesn't, we're not able to go ops, workplace, we can't be able to go to the library right now. were involved with school gym class at the Gen Y. So like even figuring trying to navigate through all of this, but no, if now that yeah, it's a difficult time. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Beth. I don't know. Are you guys all getting like really?
I can now. Sorry.
Interrupted video? Okay. So Beth, for whatever reason, it is real choppy. So I have a feeling that what you're saying is real good, but we're not catching any of it. Would you be willing to try to maybe even hop off and hop back on the call? Sometimes that helps. And
okay.
We'll jump to Willie and we'll come back to you if that's okay.
Yeah. Would you? I could. Okay. I might even try on my phone instead.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Beth. All right. Hey, thanks, guys. I'm still new to all this, so appreciate your grace in this. Okay, Willie, we're going to jump to you now and wait for Beth to hop back on. But man, I think as much as people are fearful and struggling financially, struggling mentally, or struggling with their physical health and their mental health and their kids, they're also struggling financially. And so can you just, first, I'm sure you probably have to make a disclaimer, financial advisor disclaimer here, but then after that, just, what are you seeing? How is this affecting people? And what are some things that you would advise?
Yeah, Chris, thanks for throwing me a softball for the disclaimer there. I do want to say before I start speaking that I'm not giving any specific advice to anyone, legal advice, but I will speak generally on what I'm seeing and on some of the best practices that people have generally taken up to make wise decisions, especially in times like this. I think, Chris, like you said, I mean, this is I'll use the word that we keep hearing all over these special reports and things. These are unprecedented times. These are times that I've been in financial services for a little over 3 years now. I haven't seen anything like this. There are people that's been in this industry for 20 years that haven't seen exactly what we're going through right now. Yeah, we went through the 07, 09 kind of economic collapse, but at the same time, it was due to different reasons, right? Right now, we're in a territory of unknown. And so, people are struggling. People are, there are a lot of families whose household income has drastically decreased, if not gone away altogether. Unemployment numbers are crazy high. And so, these are times where people are trying to cling on to something positive that they can hold on to.
Yeah, no, I think I'm seeing the same things, and even as a church, we're seeing more financial assistance requests than ever before. Which, praise God that we can be a part of that solution and be a blessing to folks in this time. But yeah, what would you say? Just if you're going to give some general advice to folks when it comes to what they need to be doing with their finances right now, and just how do they need to be, both preparing for the unknown, but also just securing themselves financially in this time? What would be some advice you would give?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the things about this whole situation where we're kind of practicing social distancing is it's preventing people from going out and carelessly spending, right? And so not to sound abrasive, but that is true. And I think I can speak to a couple of different groups of people. If you're younger and you've taken a hit to and if you have investments and you've got portfolios and things like that and you've taken a hit to them, just be patient. We've had economic collapses before and we've come back from those. I think the longer your time horizon is, the more patient you can be. I think the worst thing that you can do is panic right now, and the worst thing anyone can do is panic. But for young people who are thinking and worried about investments and things like that, just take a step back, just breathe, and don't make uh, these spontaneous decisions. I think for people who are pre-retired, maybe 50 years old or older, that are a little more worried about retirement accounts and things like that. For you folks, I think the main thing again is not to panic, but is also to sit down with someone. I think most people know a financial professional that they have some type of they may know or may have a relationship with. I think it's good to start having conversations with those people if you know and trust them. If you don't know someone that is a financial professional, I'm more than happy to sit down and talk with people, even virtually like this. Obviously, we're not sitting down physically right now, but I think it's worth starting to have conversations. It's really important to plan for things like retirement and legacies and all those different things. And so, I think there are ways that you can really be strategic about protecting yourselves and your families, and that's another thing for young people also. There are ways that there are wise decisions that you can make financially that can protect your family in that way. I shared with Chris yesterday that I received an email from an older couple that are clients of mine, and just one of those emails that make you feel good when you're working with people. And this particular gentleman wasn't quite sure about what my partner and I were doing with them in the beginning, and we just kept reassuring them that this was it, that this was the right thing to do. And it's probably about 12 months ago or so, and he sent me an email just last week, just thanking me because what we did was we got their money out of the market. And they're older clients. They're not all about aggressively investing. We got their money out of the market, and it's still growing, but it's growing in a way that it's growing moderately conservatively. But while everyone else has taken this big hit to their money, their money is still growing. And so he was just very thankful, and it was really confirmation that what we did was right for them.
No, that's good, Willie. Talk to me now a little bit more about maybe somebody who's at the other end of the spectrum, right? That conversation is great for people who have margin and who've been investing and that sort of stuff. But what about folks who already before this were paycheck to paycheck, were just making ends meet, and now the income's gone. You were working in the food service industry, or as you mentioned, unemployment's at an all-time high. What are some just like do's and don'ts right now? Just some things that, some things you should be doing and things you definitely shouldn't be doing right now. Any advice there?
Sure. So one of the things that you definitely should be doing is taking advantage of free resources that can help you budget. And one of those resources I'll be sharing on my Facebook business page, and I also share on my my personal Facebook page, is called Balance Work System. It's a really nice system that helps you budget your money into categories: needs, wants, savings, and giving. And budgeting obviously is really important. What happens? How do you budget when you don't have anything coming in? I think one of the worst things that you can do is let your ego get in the way, right? I say that because I know there are people out there who have lost their jobs, who have lost their income, who's never applied for unemployment before, right? And they've had this negative perspective and view of unemployment their whole lives, and because of their negative view that they've had all this time, and their pride, they don't want to go apply for unemployment. That's one of the worst things you can do, right? We're in a time where everyone is affected by this, and so the first thing you can do is, if you have lost your job, is go apply for unemployment. Another thing that Chris brought to my attention yesterday was the payday loans. man, if you can avoid taking out those payday loans, those people are, I mean, that's just not the most economically sound thing to do if you can avoid it. If you have friends, family that can help, reach out to those folks before you go to these quick payday loan places. I think that's going to be really important. I will be hosting a webinar on April 14th at 3:30 p.m. It's called values-based budgeting. It's gonna, I know there, like I said, there are a lot of people out there that have lost their incomes, and these are hard times. Hopefully this values-based budgeting webinar will help you to prioritize your spending. And I know stimulus checks will be coming out here in the next few weeks. Want the webinar to really be able to give you some nuggets and some guidance on how to really maintain during this season. And so I'll also post a link where you can pre-register for that webinar. That should be coming up real soon. The link, that post should be coming up real soon here in the near future.
Yeah, that's great. And then also I think you mentioned, that right now, because of this virus, everything is changing, including even laws around evictions. And so just make sure that you are educating yourself. If you're in a really tough financial spot, and if you can pay your rent, pay your rent. Don't avoid paying your rent because you saw something that said, well, you can get away without paying it. At some point you're going to be responsible for that rent money, whether it's today or 12 months from now. So if you can pay it, pay it. But also don't get bullied into a worse situation. Know what the laws are saying right now, what's changing, whether it's your mortgage, your rent, even your utilities, those sort of things, and make sure to prioritize the needs first, right, to your point, and then also to learn where the other resources are in our community. So, whether that's the food banks, and I've got a list of every food bank in Fort Wayne that we can share with anybody who needs it, as well as just the other financial aid opportunities in our community, whether that's, like you talked about, applying for unemployment or, WIC or some of those other things that are out there and available. And then finally, I just want to make sure I say this again, and we're trying to say it every single Sunday, but if you're somebody who's a part of our church family and you're watching this and you're struggling financially right now, we want to come alongside and help. That doesn't mean that we can, pay all of your bills, but we can do something. And so we have resources to help you. We want to help you. So before you ever go take out a payday loan, please come to our church. Go to the website, forthecity.com. It's the same connection link. Click that link, and there's an option on there to say, I need financial assistance. I need groceries. We're helping people in lots of different ways right now. And for us, that's an honor and a privilege to be able to do that. So just wanted to kind of follow that up again with another shameless plug. Willie, anything else that you would want to share with everyone right now before we jump back to Beth?
Yeah, I think I just want to reiterate that this is not a time to panic. This is God has provided for us all our lives in down times and in good times, and I think we get into these valleys and we forget about those times that we were in valleys before. And so just hold on to that belief that we will get through this. We'll get through this together. And again, have conversations with people that you trust about your money, about finance and things like that. Everyone has different goals. Goals change from person to person, from family to family. So make sure you're starting to have those conversations and strategically thinking about how you can reach your goals, no matter what end of the spectrum you're on.
Yeah, that's really good. Awesome. Hey, thanks, Willie. And then Beth, we're going to hop back to you now. Sorry, I had to cut you off earlier, but I feel like what you were saying was probably really good, and we just weren't getting much of it. So what I did say was.
Yeah, sorry, it was my fault.
No, totally okay.
Can you hear me better now? Am I good?
Yep, you're great. Yeah, so you were talking a little bit about just inviting God into the beginning of your day and into your process of education with your kids at home. I'll let you jump back in.
Yeah. Again, which is probably more not necessarily advice, but just a reminder, like, we're all trying to do that every day, invite God into the start of our day, just to help with our, like mental sanity and giving just your own peace, having a peace of mind. And so, inviting God to be a part of that school time is definitely important, and showing yourself grace. It's a difficult time. Like, honestly, for us, not too much has changed because we are homeschooling, and Kevin is still going to work, but like, we're not able to go to the library anymore. We're not able to meet with co-ops. We're not able, we were doing a homeschool gym class at the Y. We're not doing that anymore. So I definitely get and understand, like, this is a big change for everybody. And I think, like, you're going to get frustrated, especially and tired by the end of the day. And don't be afraid to apologize to your kids when you're frustrated and it's showing. Don't be afraid to apologize to your spouse. Like, I totally get. It's like, I'm mad at Kevin. I don't even know why, but it's probably just because I've been with our kids all day. So I'm really sorry, babe. Like, I don't mean to take it out on you. And just, if you are married, like, communicate with your spouse about how you're feeling. Like, be honest, like, I really need a break, and I would love to have a break at Starbucks, but that's not happening right now. So maybe a break for you is going on a walk or locking yourself in your bedroom and eating chocolate. I mean, any of those things, just to have a break. And I think the other thing too is, like, try not to wish this time away. Like, I understand it's hard, and it's just a season for you, and it is going to end, but try not to miss out on the opportunity that you're getting to spend with your kids, even when they drive you crazy. It's a blessing to have them with you, to have this time to slow down and be intentional, having conversations, like doing family devotions together, praying. Like, some amazing memories are getting made right now, and hopefully when your kids look back on this time, they're just going to remember that they got to be with their mom and dad a lot, and you got to try fun things. Like, I say, get messy. If you don't normally like your kids to play with glitter or use glitter, like, do it. You've got the time to clean it up, right? Like, you can do it. I don't know.
Sorry, I was talking without unmuting my mic. I'm still learning here.
That's okay.
No, that's really good. Can you talk a little bit about just what you would say is a good balance of education and playtime? And I think there are a lot of people who, they're used to the school structure that Janell talked about, where you're at school hours a day. And so there are probably some people feeling this pressure of, like, my kids need to be doing 6.5 hours worth of schoolwork at home. So can you talk a little bit about maybe what a normal day of homeschool life looks like for you and your kids, and then what are some things you would recommend?
Yeah. And I will say, to start off, like, I don't really know what e-learning, like, I don't know a lot about e-learning, and I don't know the structure of it, like, if you're required to do so much, or if things have to be turned in at a certain time. So just know that, like, I don't really know a lot about that and what you're required to do. And so, like, right now, and this has changed from season to season. Like, there have been years when maybe I do like 2 subjects with Emery, and then she has a break. So you're going to know your family and what's going to work best for your kids. And I say, don't be afraid to take breaks. So right now we try to start school around 8 o'clock. That happened Monday. Hasn't happened since, but that's okay. And then usually around 9:30 we have a snack, and I will let them have a little bit of screen time. Usually that's like, we're going to turn on a cartoon while they eat a snack. And then that, of course, gives me a chance to, like, wash breakfast dishes or switch out some laundry. So yeah, like, if you maybe want to just say, we're going to work for 30 minutes and then we're going to take a 10-minute break, like, it's okay to take breaks. And one beautiful thing about homeschooling is that it doesn't take us 6 to 8 hours. And that's mostly because I have 2 students right now, right? And I'm not teaching a class full of kids, which, yeah, I'll touch on something like that later. But yeah, just take breaks when you need to. If you feel like you're getting frustrated and your kids are getting frustrated, like everybody gets to take a break. Like mom gets to go reheat her coffee and sneak some chocolate, and you make your kids, if it's nice, like let them play outside for like 10 minutes, just so everybody can then come back. And during that time too, I'm like praying, like, God, please give me a little more patience, like help me to persevere through this. Like we're getting frustrated and that's not how we want it to be. Yeah, so yeah, if you find yourself getting frustrated, it is totally okay. Take a break, reheat that coffee, eat some chocolate,
Yeah, that's good. And then, so you said, it doesn't take 6 to 8 hours. So what's a typical length of day for you guys?
Yeah, so Calvin is doing kindergarten this year, and he is done. So if we start at 8, we have a break at 9:30. He's done by 10:15, 10:30. Also kind of depends on just his day and how hard he wants to work. Emery, we strive to be done by noon, by lunchtime. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. Yesterday, honest, a lot of meltdowns. So Emery and I had to finish a few things after lunch. But again, that's kind of the beauty. You can extend it into the afternoon, or, like there have been times when we've had really slow mornings, like I just want to sit and read my Bible and drink a hot cup of coffee. And then we start school a little bit later. But yeah, it doesn't, like you can be done by lunch, and then the rest of the afternoon is free for art projects or reading or nature stuff outside.
Yeah, that's really good. And then can you just share, I'll ask you a couple more questions and then we'll try to wrap up because we're going a little longer than I said it would. So thank you everybody for your patience. But just, when it comes to your kids' education, if your school just got shut down and you're freaking out worrying, like you want to make sure that your kid is still learning, but there's also like, you're not a teacher. You didn't go to school for this. You weren't trained for it. And what are some things that parents should be focusing on with their kids' education? What should they be prioritizing? And then what are some things that they can say, you know what, like you're not taking I-STEP this year or whatever it's called now. I think they've changed it, so it doesn't really matter. But just what are some?
I don't know what they've changed it to. Yeah. Sorry. So can you ask me those questions one more time? I'm so sorry.
What should parents be focusing on for kids' education? What should they be prioritizing? And what should they be saying, hey, you know what, this isn't so critical?
Yeah. Which it is okay to not like don't feel the pressure to make your child's school day at home what they're doing in public school. And I'm not saying that what they're doing is bad. It's not. It's what you're trained to do. And honestly, like that's my background. I have an elementary education degree, and I've had to learn to fight some of that because this is different, like so different. Yeah. So don't put that pressure on making it like school. And I'm sure you can all tell in the background, I have a chalkboard. It's a magnetic chalkboard that we painted. And that's just because I geek out about writing on the chalkboard. I always have. Like I love writing on a chalkboard. But you can have that space set up, a desk, a place where they can go to work. Like that's totally fine. But it's also totally fine to let them sit on the front porch if it's nice, to do work. But back to like what they can be focusing on, reading is such a huge thing. Read to them, have them read to you, have older siblings read to their younger siblings. I saw somewhere, to make it a fun goal, if you still have picture books in your house, like make it a goal to read all of the picture books that you have in your house. And there's a gal I follow, her name's Mackenzie, and she will tell you even older kids still benefit from picture books, even if they try to tell you that they're too old for those. Like they're not, like, they can still benefit from those. Sorry, I'm just giving some ideas here too. You could find a book that's also a movie. So you can read the book, watch the movie, and then discuss the similarities and differences. Math. math is important. So you could focus on that. A lot of math can happen in the kitchen. If you like to bake, you're using cups and measuring things, and you can write your math facts out on the sidewalk, or just practice writing your numbers with sidewalk chalk on the sidewalk. There's those things. Writing, like, what a great time to go back to writing letters. Like, have your kids find a pen pal. Like, it could literally be somebody across the street, and just have them practice those writing skills back and forth. Art and music is important too. Like, I don't want to say it's just reading and writing. Right? Those are the things you should focus on. Art and music, you can study an artist and then try to use their technique, and make art that way. Same thing with a composer. You could study a composer and talk about it. I know some places are offering operas, they're showing operas for free online. So those are, some subjects. Again, don't feel all the pressure. I really think some of the important things that you can do is read, because reading, they're going to soak in, and you're going to feed your kids' brains just by reading to them, all kinds of things. And I know what your kids are interested in, and I know right now we can't go to the library, and I know there's a lot of services where you can get books digitally. So definitely take advantage of those, and just, read.
Yeah, that's good. I saw a meme that I thought was funny the other day that said, are you feeling guilty about having your kids watch too much television? Just mute it and turn the subtitles on. Now they're reading.
Yes.
So now they're getting an education. Last question for you, Beth, is there, are there 2 or 3 go-to resources that you would say, these are some great websites that you can get? Because you're talking about math, and I'm like my daughter's in 1st grade. I think I know what math she's learning. I've looked at her papers this year, but I don't know what math to do, addition and subtraction and that sort of stuff. But are there some great just go-to resources, maybe even free resources for folks?
Yeah, the biggest free resource is definitely just Googling. You can go on Google and you can look up 1st grade math worksheets, and there's going to be a lot of websites that are going to allow you to print off, if you have that capability, some just practice sheets, and don't think of that as busy work. It's not. They're practicing in those skills. I know some websites, and abcmouse.com. Some of these websites are either discounting or allowing for longer free trials to get to use their website. ABC Mouse is also an app. Our kids love it. You can start with preschool, even Alethea, so can use it because there's colors, and it starts very basic shapes and things like that, and then it goes into reading, and there's songs, and so that's a good one. Starfall.com is another one that you can use. It's not free, but again, they could be offering, I don't know 100%, but they could offer some sort of discount. And that one, as far as memberships go, it's not very expensive either. But it starts with pre-K and goes to 3rd grade, and it covers reading and math. So there's some math there. It's a lot of fun. And then I was just going to mention, there is a lady who I've seen speak at homeschool conventions. Her name is Heidi St. John, and she has a website called momstronginternational.com, where you can print off scripture in the form of, so your kids are tracing and practicing their letters, but it's scripture. They also offers for parents or older students. There's a schedule, so you can sit down and write out scripture together with kids. And then Sarah Mackenzie was another one that I mentioned, and she's a big advocate for reading aloud. And so she has readaloudrevival.com, and there are free book lists that she has put together, book lists just for boys, book lists for older students. And both of these women have podcasts too. If you're just needing something new to listen to, Heidi St. John, her podcast is called Off the Bench with Heidi St. John. And then Sarah Mackenzie has the Read Aloud Revival podcast. And they're just amazing women, and they know what they're talking about. And I find so much encouragement from them, and they do have some free resources.
Yeah, that's great. And just to make sure I mention this too, this is all, supplemental resources. Obviously, I know Fort Wayne Community Schools is providing, some take-home curriculum. We went and picked some up for Parker last week. I know a lot of school systems are doing e-learning and that sort of stuff, but for folks who maybe can't get to that, or just, for whatever reason, maybe they were in a private school, that school's no longer doing e-learning. These are some great alternative options too.
Yeah. So, and something I forgot too, the Dollar Tree has a section of school stuff, and you can find workbooks there, mostly elementary, and I'm sorry, like a lot of my knowledge is mostly elementary, so I'm really sorry for those of you that have middle school and high school students. Also Walmart and Target, like if you're there buying toilet paper, you can go ahead and check out like their book section. There's going to be workbooks and stuff there too that you can pick up. So those are just some other ideas as well.
Yeah, and speaking of toilet paper, there are some incredible math equations with the rolls you're really getting, and so there's
toilet paper math, right?
Well, hey, thanks so much, Beth, and I just want to say to each one of you guys, Greg, Janell, Willie, and Beth, thank you so much for your time today. Just want to close with, I said I would bring this back to a spiritual thought, and so I will. You guys are all experts in your fields, and so that's why I wanted to bring you in and just have you share. And I just appreciate the fact that that you are being the church in your industry or whatever field you're in. And so, a lot of people have been talking about, church is closed. The church is not closed, nor will it ever be closed. The building is closed, but the church is the body of Christ. And so you guys are now demonstrating that more than ever. And so, so just thank you for demonstrating that, for living out your calling, and doing ministry, and taking care of people in all of your different ways. So really appreciate it, and God bless you guys. We'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, Chris.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm gonna end this recording.